everyone. Good morning. Excited to be with you today and nerd out about fluency. It's something I'm really passionate about, and I think this is a part of students' reading journey that often gets neglected. So today we're going to really learn how to support students as they're moving from decoding into comprehending. So just a reminder, we are all part of the Ravenswood Promise, and what that means is we are all working really hard to make sure that our students are achieving at high levels, that they are accessing the education they need to have an opportunity-filled life, right? So just take a moment and think about to yourself, what is your role in helping to achieve the Ravenswood Promise? And if you could just turn and talk to a partner, and you're going to share about these questions. Ready, go. Awesome, thank you. So this is the 0 signal, which means we're going to bring our voice levels back to 0. So if you see this, you can hold it up and it kind of spreads, and then we all kind of come back to focus. So thank you. Thanks for taking a minute to share. Can I get 3 volunteers to just popcorn out what came up for you with these questions?
Well, we talked about closing the gap of where kids are within our same city and trying to make a difference in doing that.
Thank you. Yeah. And the reality is there is a really big gap, right? We have a lot of work to do. Yeah. Anyone else? Thank you for being brave and sharing out loud.
Well, I will share. So Sarah teaches college, and she was saying her students don't read, and so she's here to kind of fix
Starting on the other end.
Fix the pipeline. Yeah, right. That was in my skills.
Thank you. Yeah, so important. One more, yeah.
Besides wanting to love the kids up and make them feel good, I just learned yesterday that they call it the jail pipeline, the prison pipeline, where after the 3rd grade, if the kids aren't reading, in the 4th grade they start to tank because everything depends on reading, and they turn them out of jail cells, they'll be in 10 years based on reading level in 4th grade.
Yeah, very true, very sad statistic.
Motivating.
True, but also motivating, right? We have really important work to do, and 3rd grade is a critical time to catch kids before that gap widens, but it's not too late, right? So our 4th and 5th graders, our 6th graders, it is not too late. If we can turn on that love for reading, if we can help them experience success, we can change the trajectory of their lives.
Can I just add one thing on that? One of the reasons I'm here is because I saw a movie called Sentenced, which you may have heard of. It's a documentary, and it talks about not just about going to prison, but just how not learning to read when you're this young age really does just determines your entire life and the lives of your children too, because you can't help them. So I really recommend the documentary if you can find it.
Yeah, it's the #1 predictor of pretty much every life outcome, right? So, yes, so important the work that we're going to be doing. Before we get into talking about the nitty-gritty with fluency, I want to lead you through a routine that you'll probably see happening in some of our classrooms. This is called a KWL chart. This is something teachers do with students to help activate background knowledge and also prime them for learning and for reflecting on their learning. So the first question we're going to grapple with is, what do we already know about fluency? So if you have an idea, if you think you know something about fluency, you've heard something about it, shout it out. Yeah.
Being able to read the words on the page and understand what they're saying.
What else?
Be able to read without hesitating.
What else?
Accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
Reading with expression.
Mm-hmm. Inference.
And enjoyment.
Okay, and what are some questions we have about fluency? What do we want to know? What are you hoping to get out of this training?
How to teach fluency.
Okay. I hope we'll cover that today.
And maybe building off of that, like what are kind of the little bite-sized steps that get us there?
Yep.
What gets in the way?
Yeah.
Do like different strategies for different types of learners?
All right, I think that gives us a good place to start. As we go through the training today, we want to pay attention if we're answering our questions, and at the end, I'm going to ask us to reflect on what we learned. Okay, so our objective for our time together today is to, one, just understand why reading fluency is so important. We're going to learn to implement a routine or a strategy called repeated readings. We're going to see some fluency routines in action and discuss what we saw, and we're going to get an opportunity to practice some of those fluency routines. And if you have any questions, we will surface those and try to get them answered. I want to just highlight the practice piece. So I think it's really important that before we get in front of kids, we practice ourselves. Because we could go in and have this great mental image of how we're going to do this thing, and then we do it, and we're like, oh, that didn't go as I planned. So practice is important. And I'm going to ask you to be vulnerable and kind of do some role plays today to practice the routines you'll be leading with kiddos. All right, how many people have seen this image? All right, okay, a couple, okay. This is one of my favorite images ever. This is called Scarbo's Reading Rope, and any science-based reading teacher, educator, this is like our go-to touchstone because it is basically a really tidy, nice visual image to codify decades of research about how children learn to read. And there is a ton of research. It's one of the most studied areas of human development, how kids learn to read. And unfortunately, in the US and in California in particular, we've been teaching kids how to read incorrectly for a very long time, right? If you want to hear the whole political story and turmoil and drama, listen to the podcast, Sold a Story. Very eye-opening. But basically, we know how to teach kids to read. The research is there. It's now about getting all schools on board with teaching aligned with the science of reading. But basically, what the science of reading tells us is that in order for kids to become skilled readers, aka they are reading fluently on a page and they are understanding the words that they are reading and they are comprehending the text as a whole, in order to get here, we have to build these different strands of their knowledge in order to get to this place. So those two strands are very much intertwined. You cannot become a skilled reader if one of these parts is not fully developed. The two big strands are word recognition. So this is really focused on decoding words, understanding that that letters have sounds. Those sounds can be put together to blend words, right? This is really addressed in our SIPs instruction. Some of you will also be, I think, doing some SIPs groups. This is where we focus. SIPs focuses on building word recognition. Language comprehension is really built through the ELA curriculum and giving kids lots of opportunities to grapple with knowledge building and also understand the language conventions of English. Once kids have those strands starting to develop, they're starting to decode. They have some vocabulary under their belt. They're starting to understand syntax and language and have background knowledge. Then they reach this place in their reading, which is where we're going to be focused, where they now need to learn to read at a rate and with an accuracy that allows them to comprehend, right? So fluency, the work of fluency kind of falls right here in the reading rope. And it is really the place that a hurdle that kids need to get over before they can get to the skilled reading. So when we say fluency, we're talking about basically three things. It's comprised of three things. That kids can read accurately, they can read with automaticity. That means they do not need to sound out every word. They see the word and they can automatically read it. And not only can they automatically read it, but they have some sort of mental schema for what it means. And they can read with proper expression because that allows them to better understand the text. So fluency is really the bridge between decoding and true understanding and comprehension. What happens for a lot of our kids when they get stuck at the fluency level is they're pretty good decoders. They can sound out individual words, but it's so laborious for them, it takes them so long, that by the time they get to the end of the sentence, all of their brain energy has been used on decoding, and they don't understand what they just read, right? So fluency is really about helping them pick up that rate of reading so that they can get to a place where they can read, comprehend what they're reading. Super important because basically it is a reciprocal relationship with comprehension, right? The more fluently you read, the better you comprehend, and also the more you comprehend, the better you fluently read, right? So these two things are very much related, and you cannot be a super strong reader who understands what you're reading if you do not have fluency, or strong fluency, I should say. When our kiddos are developing their fluency, these are the things we want them paying attention to, right? And by default, you'll be paying attention to these things as well when you're listening to kids read and supporting them with their fluency. Accuracy, right? We want to make sure that kids are reading the words correctly. A lot of the poor reading instruction that has happened in the US and California has taught kids bad habits. Like, look at the first letter in the word, and then guess what the word is based on context. You can see if you're reading college level text how that might cause some major complications, right? So a lot of our kids will see ST and say stop, but maybe the word is, I don't know. Start. Thank you. Yes. And we want to make sure that we're calling kids' attention when they make those kind of errors where they're guessing, to actually have them read accurately, right? Because that will interfere with comprehension over time. We want to pay attention to their rates. A lot of times people think fluency is like getting kids to read faster. We don't want kids just zooming through the text either. That'll happen sometimes. You'll see they'll get really excited about increasing their rate, and then they'll just want to read it so fast they can't even understand it, and then, right? So it's actually about reading at the appropriate pace to support comprehension, right? And then reading with expression, and also paying attention to things like punctuation, because that tells us a lot about actually how to read the text and how to understand the text, right? There's a big difference between a sentence that ends in a period and one that ends in a punctuation mark, and kids need to, question mark, and kids need to understand the difference there. Okay. So when we talk about grade level, what does that actually mean? So all those reading scientists have done a ton of research. They've normed across kids all over the place. And this is what the standard for grade level is considered, right? So in first grade, we usually don't measure, these are words per minute. We don't usually start measuring words per minute until about first grade. Sometimes kindergartners move a little faster and they can get on this first grade trajectory too. But at the end of first grade, a student, in order to be considered grade level, should be reading between 39 and 75 words per minute. If they are reading less than 25, they're considered very below grade level. Okay, and you can see how across the grades that jumps significantly, right? So our 5th graders should be reading between 137 and 156 words per minute. And if they're reading 123, which is, great in the lower grades, they're actually considered far below grade level. So this is just to give you an idea of like what we're aiming for when we're talking about getting kids to grade level in their reading.
And is this, I assume this is also the type of text that they're not only reading more words, but they're reading at a higher level of text.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Yes, the rigor of the text is going to go up. The complexity of the text is going to go up. Yes. So this is reading at that rate on a grade level text, right? So 5th grade, you can imagine they're encountering a lot more multisyllabic words with a lot more complex meanings, different sentence phrasing, right? More complexity in the text in general, and they're expected to be able to read at that rate. Okay, so let's think a little bit about who your kiddos are going to be. They're all beautiful, unique children who are going to come to you with their own stories and their own journey through reading. And they'll have some things in common, right? Because of where they are in their reading journey and how they've been leveled in order to be placed into your groups. Can I get someone to just popcorn? If we could just go around the room and just popcorn these out. Oh, sorry. Okay. Popcorn is another EduSpeak expression, and it basically means, when popcorn's waiting, and then one kernel goes, and then another kernel goes, and then so it means one person reads the first line, and then the next person does, and then until we get through all of them.
So have completed grade level phonics sequences.
Approaching grade level in overall reading progress.
Strong gains in decoding, but still developing automaticity in rate.
May sound choppy or robotic when reading aloud.
They lack reading stamina for longer texts.
May struggle with multisyllabic words and spelling.
Some decode well but lack vocabulary and language to fully comprehend.
Need extensive repeated practice with connected text.
Oh, we have an Old Maid popcorn kernel. Last one.
At a critical juncture, transitioning from learning to read to reading to learn.
Awesome, thank you. You guys just finished your first popcorn reading. Good job, good job.
Can I have a question? When you say who are your students, my question is compared to whom? I mean, are they pulled because they're this compared to the rest of their grade?
Yes. So you are going to be working with kiddos who, for the most part, are they're like approaching grade level, right? So most of them will have completed the phonics sequence, right? So they've learned how to decode pretty well. And they're considered approaching because they can decode words, but usually their rate is too slow to really have strong comprehension. So they're probably falling a little short on that words per minute count. Did that answer your question?
Kind of, because I wonder what they're told about going to book club. Like, is it volunteer or are they told something? I just want to get a sense of what their mindset is when they're there.
Oh, so all the kids during this time are leveled according to their need, and then they're told you're going to go with so-and-so to work on your reading, because all the kids are working on the reading at the same time. And it's just what they're working on is different, but it's very, I think, normalized across our schools that all kids are growing their reading, and it doesn't matter where you are in your reading journey, you're still growing your reading.
And I'll just add, at some of the sites you'll hear they actually call it win time, like what I need. So it's normalized. The students know.
going to their different groups and working
Yeah.
on what they need.
So many of you will
Sorry,
be, oh yeah.
I have seen awareness that they know that they're in a lower reading level, and have actually brought up questions about why am I in here, and why, when will I be done? So I think those are questions you should expect.
Yeah, and I think like we just want to normalize that everybody learns differently, right? And we all need to work hard on growing our reading, right? And that's what we're here to do.
Is it the case that the students who are most behind will be working with the teacher rather than with us?
Yes. So in the fluency groups, you guys are actually going to be working with the kids that are further along, right? A little bit more advanced in their reading. And so they might be actually coming to you with more confidence in their reading. And they can also come with a little bit of a fixed mindset where I'm already a strong reader. I don't need to keep practicing, right? So that's something that you might encounter as well. Because they're strong decoders, they've probably been told many times, like, you're a strong reader, but like fluency is a whole other beast, right? And that's a whole new thing for them to learn. So you're really gonna be pushing them at the zone of their development, right? To get them to move forward in reading. Okay. For the sake of time, we're gonna breeze through this. Think about this question, marinate on this. So, in order to build fluency, one of the most important aspects of teaching fluency is lots of repetition. Kids need to be exposed to the same text multiple times so that they can improve their reading of that text over time. That allows them to experience success and is motivation to keep trying moving forward. When kids read text multiple times, it improves their accuracy, right? So that when they read stopped the first time, now they know that it's start and they're going to read that correctly the next time. And it also improves their automaticity because they've seen those words before, so now they can read them automatically. It allows them to improve their rate and smoothness and improve their prosody, so how they're phrasing and their expression with each read. Those things can get better. For multilingual learners, repetition is like one of the key ELD strategies, right? And so that applies to fluency as well. We want them to have multiple at-bats with the same reading passage. Another reason we do repetitive reading with kids is that it allows them to focus their brain energy on understanding the text instead of decoding the text, right? So it helps them build this schema for, oh, like I'm reading this for a purpose. I'm trying to understand what the text means. Okay? It is also the most like research-based strategy to build fluency. So the way that I've kind of structured your time with kiddos during your fluency groups is a 2-day routine. So it varies a little bit each day, but basically you're doing multiple readings of the same text over 2 days. So let's say Monday and Tuesday, and then Thursday and Friday you would start a new text, okay?
But we're only there once a week, so.
Right, so your partner, so your team, let's say you do Mondays, then your team will pick up the Tuesday reading, and then someone will do Wednesday and someone will do Thursday, right?
Not Wednesday.
Thursday.
Sorry, huh?
Not Wednesday.
Not Wednesday, yeah, Thursday and then Friday, yes. So I think it'll be helpful for you guys to have like a system or something, like in your material bin to leave a little note, a little post-it, right? We'll talk more with Susan and Angie about how to kind of organize the materials, but the vision is sort of like you have a bin, all the 2 passages for the week are in there, and then whoever, if you're Monday, you know that you're a day 1 routine, if you're Tuesday, you're day 2, Thursday, day 1, Friday, day 2, okay? Yes?
When you go through that, just have some strategies, because a lot of the kids aren't gonna be there on either days, and they miss multiple days, so you've got a day 1 and day 2,
Yeah.
and how you would like us to handle those, that would be helpful.
The good news is every day they're doing repeated reading, So it's not a big deal. If they weren't there day one, they can just do day two. Yeah, if they missed day one, day two of the first passage, not a big deal, just start with the second passage.
So this feels like a dumb question. So they're not going to have books, it's going to be like passages?
It's gonna be a passage, yeah.
So that's different.
Yeah, so the reason, you can see in your materials packet, there's a passage there, a sample passage. The reason we use the passage, it has been leveled for the phonics and the sentence structure and the vocabulary that is appropriate for the grade level. And it also allows you to have like a quick word count, which we'll get into why you need that in a little bit, too. So it's just an easier thing for you to have.
So are the
materials.
passages each week a book, but chunked up, or are they standalone?
These are standalones for now, yeah.
So you referred to a bin, so it's like a bin in the classroom where there's material and stuff?
That would, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that something we'll be talking to our teachers about?
Yeah, so
Okay.
next
Sorry.
Wednesday is your meet and greet
Yeah.
with your teacher. And so one of the things, we have a whole list that we'll send out, like what to talk to your teacher about. And one of the things you're talking about is where do we keep the bin in the classroom? You'll also talk about communication, like what's the best way to communicate as a cohort. Most of our cohorts did group text. I mean, that's the easiest, yeah.
So
like-
logistics stuff?
Yeah, you'll be talking about all that on Wednesday the 17th.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so day one. These routines, you'll see there's a lot packed into 30 minutes, right? The routines are intended to move at a quick pace, and that's really to support with students' engagement. So you want to make sure that you're not like drawing these routines out, because then they get slow, cumbersome, and kids get disengaged, right? We want to keep the pace moving the whole time through the group session. One thing I did add to our fluency routine is an explicit teach of vocabulary words that they're going to see in the passage. Because if you go back to that reading rope, one of the areas our kids still need a lot of work on is vocabulary. So this is just another opportunity for us to build vocabulary. So there's going to be a routine. I'm going to go through each of these routines first in a minute, where you teach the vocabulary. Then you're going to do an echo reading routine, a buddy reading routine, a reading rehearsal, and then they're going to do a 1-minute read where the kiddos will just read independently for 1 minute, and then they're going to graph the number of words per minute that they read, okay? And then at the end, there will be some time for you to go through comprehension questions with your kiddos based on the text that they read.
When you say read independently, you're talking about reading aloud or to themselves?
Yes, I'm going to get to that too in just a second. Day 2 is very similar structure. Just a few little routines get switched out just to keep it more engaging for the kiddos. So instead of teaching the vocabulary, you're going to review the vocabulary. Instead of echo reading, you're going to choral read. They're very similar, but I'll show you the difference. They're still going to do their reading rehearsal, and they're still going to graph, because we want to see after reading it, now they've read it, I think 6 times by the time they get here, has their words per minute increased, right? And then some more time for discussion. And there's a little vocabulary quiz too, just so we can monitor, like, are they learning what we're teaching? So to your question in the back, all of these routines are done with students reading aloud. And that's really important, and it's really intentional. So we want kids to read aloud primarily because then they can hear themselves read, right? And then they're more likely to hear when they make a mistake and to self-correct that mistake. It also, as teachers, helps us better monitor how the student is doing and allow us to give timely and corrective feedback to them, right? So all of these routines are going to be done aloud. So our first routine is the vocabulary routine. What day is this happening on? Day one, right? This is when we're going to explicitly teach the vocabulary words that are at the top of your passage. So if you look at your passage, you'll see each passage is going to have 3 vocabulary words called out, and then they're also bold-faced in the text. Okay? So here are the steps of the routine, and I'm going to model it for you in just a minute. You're going to say the word, and students are going to repeat it. You're going to clap the syllables in the word, and have students repeat it. And then they're going to circle it in their text, okay? And you're going to do that for all 3 words.
Really quickly, I just want to let you know, we are going to send out the slide deck. So yeah, sorry, I know everyone was like fiercely looking, but you will get all this in the training summary.
What is clap syllables?
I'm going to model that right now.
Okay,
Okay? All right. Okay, scholars, today we're going to learn a new word. The word is explorer. Say explorer.
Explorer.
Explorer. Your turn.
Explorer.
Explorer has 3 syllables, and it's a noun. The explorer traveled to the abandoned kingdoms in hopes of finding lost treasure. An explorer is someone who travels to learn about new places. What's an explorer?
Someone who travels to learn about new places.
Awesome. And that is the routine. And you're going to repeat that for each of the 3 words in your passage. Okay? Now, I think I say this later on in the presentation, but I'll just call it out now too. So what is provided for you as volunteers? And Angie, we can talk more about like setting folks up for success with this. The words are provided for you in the fluency passages. As volunteers, we'll need you to find an image to go with your word and your definition. Okay? So that's some prep you'll have to do if you're teaching on a day 1. And if you're a really kind day 1 partner, you'll leave that in the bin for your day 2 and 4 partners, right? But that way, you'll have, we'll create a bank of these, you'll have the images, and it's even fun on some days, like if you have extra time to go back and refer to old vocabulary that kids learned a couple weeks ago and see if it's still sticking. All right? So now, you're gonna get a chance to practice this. So if you look at passage, yes, the vocabulary again can be found on each fluency passage at the top. So that's what you'll need. And then you're now going to get a chance to practice this with a person at your table. So you're going to use the word ancient. You can pull up a picture on your phone real quick if you want. And you're going to practice going through all the steps of the vocabulary routine. I'll put the routine up again. Okay. Okay. You don't have to memorize it. It might also be helpful to print this, print this and have it in your bin too until it feels like a comfortable routine for you.
It's also part of there.
I loved it. Okay, what felt good about that routine? What felt tricky? Any questions coming up for folks after having practiced it?
The image, I'm nervous about choosing an appropriate image, skin tone, like all that stuff, just a little.
I think you're not always going to necessarily have images that require people, right? So objects is fine. I think what we're trying to do is create a neural shortcut from the word to an association with the word. When we are using people in images, I always encourage to showcase some kind of diversity, right? So that we're showing images of people who look like our kids. I think that's important.
Will we know this passage on the Monday or the Thursday, the first day people? Will we know that the words are, so it would be nice to be able to have the images ready to go so they're not
100%. Yes, you do want to have them ready to go. ahead of time, right? You don't want to get in front of kids and be like, oh, let me find an ancient
Yes.
image, right? The way it's going to be set up, you guys will get access to the materials after this training. They're all in the deck, but I'll also work with Susan and Angie to make sure you guys have everything. You're going to open a Word doc or Google Doc, and it's going to have a tab for each passage. So it'll say passage 1, passage 2, and you'll go through them like that. So if you're in your first week and you're a Thursday person, you'll know that you are on passage 2. If that makes sense. And so you can look at it at any time, and it'll be open. It'll be available for you, and you can pull it up and plan for the vocabulary.
Do the kids know the parts of speech? So we say it's a noun or an adjective, will they?
They're learning them. We don't need to go into like some long explanation of it. You just want to say what it is so that they're starting to like think about those things, right? And a lot of that is learned through the context of using the sentence, of using the word, which is why we say it again in the sentence. You had a question?
No, it's the same question, because I don't even know what adjective is.
Will these whatever tools we need be available electronically as opposed to just in our bin so that we can prepare ahead of time?
Yes, you'll have access to all of them electronically. With kids, you definitely want to have the physical copies.
I know,
Right,
you
yeah.
can print it
But
out
yes.
and you can prepare ahead of time
Yes.
as opposed to having to
Yep,
go.
you'll have it all available to you.
So if I give them the word, how many copies do we need to distribute the copies?
So my understanding is that your group sizes are not going to be more than like 3 kids, right? So I would just plan on having 4 copies so you have a copy too of all your materials. I don't know. We're gonna. I don't know what the answer to that is, but we'll that will be communicated to you from RCP. Yes. Okay.
Will there be 4 copies of the bin, or should we print it out and paste it?
I think that's more of an RCP question, like how the materials organization is going to work. My assumption is like, hopefully, each week one person is going to make the copies of the 2 passages you'll need, right? And they'll be in the bins for you. But I think that's something you guys are going to have to coordinate amongst your groups. Is that an okay answer, Angie?
Yeah, Susan and I will make sure the passages and the copies are in the bins. We haven't figured out the logistics for it because it's a lot of bins and a lot of classrooms, but we're working on that. We'll communicate it out.
Okay, so that's our vocabulary routine. Now we're going to look at our echo reading routine. So I'm still on day 1, right? I've done my vocabulary, explicit teaching. Now I'm moving into echo reading. With echo reading, the purpose of this routine is for kids to hear a teacher read the text fluently and with appropriate prosody. So that's the expression and the phrasing, right? And also to get a sense of like how to read the punctuation in the text. The way it works is the teacher reads fluently one sentence. You might want to like exaggerate a little bit your reading style or like the expression, right? So kids really can hear that difference. So you'll read one sentence and then the students will echo, so they'll read the exact same sentence that you just read in the same way, right? So if you're reading a sentence that ends in a question mark, did you want to go to the park? Then the kids will also say, did you want to go to the park? Right? So you're going to help them, you're going to model that for them, and they're going to echo it back to you. And you're going to read the whole passage in that way. So that's one reading, okay? We're going to watch a video of a teacher doing this. This routine depends on the length of the passages. So the passages do get a little bit longer for 4th and 5th grade. It's not super important that you read the entire passage, okay? So this is not about completion. This is about practice of the skills. So if you're finding this routine is taking you more than 3 minutes, just stop reading the passage, okay? Because kids are going to get to read this passage multiple times anyway. And if they're reading it at grade level, they don't actually even need to get to the end of it, right? Because they're reading, you know, like 140 words or so. And the passages are about 200. I just made them a little longer to give kids more practice if there's time. Okay, so we're going to look at this echo reading routine this teacher is going to do. And I want you to pay attention to, 1, how did the teacher set expectations with the kids, okay? Because you, and I'm going to say, I should have said this too, anyone who works with kids and spends time teaching kids is a teacher in my eyes, right? Teachers come in many different forms and with many different kinds of training, but parents are teachers. We're all, we're working to educate children, so if I refer to you as a teacher, that's why. But you are gonna need to set expectations with your kiddos, right? This is the routine we're doing. After a couple times, you won't need to say it every time, but when you first introduce it, you need to tell them what they're doing, right? What are you doing, and what do you expect them to do? So pay attention to how this teacher does that, and then notice what is the teacher doing and what are the students doing during this routine. And also, send me some positive technology vibe that the speaker is going to be loud and effective.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to try something called echo read, okay? I'm going to read a sentence, and then you guys are going to say exactly what I said, okay? Should you just memorize what I say, or should you read from the text?
Read from the text.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Should you follow along while I read?
Yes.
Absolutely. Here we go. Or you drive by your old school.
Or you drive by your old school.
And then it all comes back to you.
And then it all comes back to you.
How does that happen?
How does that happen?
It's one big mystery.
It's one big mystery.
People have walked on the moon.
People have walked on the moon.
But they can't remember.
But they can't remember.
What they dreamed about last night.
What they dreamed about last night.
Okay, so what, first of all, did the teacher do to set expectations for kids?
Told them what they were going to do.
Right?
Well, she
And
asked them what they were.
she asked them what they're gonna do. You can ask, you can tell. But you're just gonna make it clear what you're doing, the teacher, and what the kids are doing, right? What was a really important expectation she set with them?
She told them not to, would they just copy her or would they look at her?
Exactly. Yes. We want kids, they must be tracking the text during this routine. If they are just parroting back what you said, they're not reading, right? So we want their eyes on the text, not on the teacher, when you're doing this routine. Okay?
Does it help to follow along with your finger and you know that they're doing it?
Yes.
One of the kids wasn't doing it.
There's a debate in the science of reading world about whether kids should track with their finger. I think it's helpful as a teacher to see where kids are, right, and make sure they're actually attending. But if they're not naturally doing it, unless you think that they're not following along, I would just kind of leave it. Yeah. What did we see the teacher doing?
Exaggerating emotion, exaggerating expression.
And she was really attending to the phrasing, right? So there was kind of a little bit of a dramatic pause at a comma, right? Because she wants kids to hear what that sounds like. And what did kids do? Oh, sorry, yes.
She broke up the sentences.
Uh-huh.
She didn't read an entire sentence.
Uh-huh.
If it made
If it's a
sense
really long
to
one.
put it in chunks.
Yeah.
And she was looking at all 4 kids to see where they were.
Yep. Yeah, you really have to be a superhero as a teacher, right? You're doing your thing, you're modeling, and then you're also always monitoring what kids are doing and making sure they're with you, right? What are kiddos doing in this video? Echoing.
Looking at the actual text.
Looking at the text, right? That's really important. You don't want them watching you want them looking at the text, okay? So that's our echo reading routine. It's pretty easy, right? Once you get the hang of it. And that will do the first day because this is the most heavily teacher facilitated routine, right? So this is really to introduce kids to the text so they hear it fluently read. All right, it's your turn to practice. Okay, so you're going to take your passage. You're going to have about 2 minutes. So each partner take 1 minute to practice doing the echo routine.
Sorry.
hear it spread and then come back. Okay, how did that feel?
Fine.
Okay, we're feeling pretty confident about that routine?
So can you remind me, is the teacher reading that with kids or?
No. Good point. Okay. So when the kids are repeating, the teacher is not repeating with them, right? She's listening to the students read. Okay?
That was actually a lecture.
Okay. Well, that was a very good question, right? We only want to hear the teacher voice in the first read, and then the kids echo the second read. Yeah.
Should we take any action if like a student stumbles on a word or something that loses kind of the train of thought?
Yeah, so if you notice, in this routine, you don't see that as much. You'll see it in others, and we'll talk about some corrections that you can give kids. But if you notice, like the students, because they're also reading chorally back to you, right? If you notice, like they mispronounce a word or they stumble, then you can just say, oops, let's try that again. My turn, read the sentence, your turn, and then pick right back up. One of the biggest corrections you're gonna give kids throughout all of these routines is just doing it again, right? A reread when they stumble or make a mistake. Okay, the next routine I'm gonna show you is called choral reading. This happens on day 2 instead of echo reading, right? That's very similar with one small tweak. In this routine, the teacher is less, her voice or his voice is less prominent in the reading routine, okay? So it's more of an opportunity for kids to try. But basically the teacher is gonna prompt the kids to read together orally, and the teacher's main job is to cue students when to start and to help them maintain the appropriate pace while they're reading, okay? Sometimes kids will get a little silly when you do this routine, and one of them will wanna race ahead, and you have to set an expectation that, nope, the purpose of us doing this is to read all together at the correct rate. So if you get a kid who's racing ahead, you wanna pause, let's try that again, right? And you might read with them a little bit to get them paced, but then you wanna fade your voice away so that the kids are the one reading, not you, okay? And then you can stop if you need to, pause and provide feedback. I believe that's shown in this video. The one thing I wanna say about this video as a caveat, if I was coaching this teacher, the first thing I would tell her is her voice is way too loud. Okay, because when she's doing the choral reading with the kids, we really want kids doing the reading. Okay, so your voice should be at a fair whisper or turned off entirely once kids get into the rhythm of the reading.
I have a question.
This reading fluently. Now we know that's a good reader.
Sorry.
Are there going to be 5 groups of reading going on in a room at the same time, so there's a lot of ambient noise?
I'm not sure exactly what the setup is. Usually there are multiple groups in a room, right?
There are, and a lot of the classroom teachers are fine if you take your kiddos outside.
Okay.
I did that last year with both of my teachers. So yeah, so when you meet with your teacher on the 17th, check with them if it's okay to go outside to the picnic tables or, yeah.
Yes. And I think in my experience too, running lots of small groups in classrooms, I think the adults tend to be more sensitive to all the ambient noise than the kids. The kids are usually pretty accustomed to it. But if you're finding it distracting and it's hard for you to focus on what kids are doing, I would advocate to use a separate setting. Okay, let's go ahead and watch this teacher do the choral reading routine.
To read the words correctly, and you need to have expression in your voice, okay? We're gonna practice reading the story, A Dream Schedule, several different ways. The first way we're gonna do it is by choral reading. That means we all read together, okay? All right. Finger on the first word. Now I wanna make sure I hear your voice. We're gonna go nice and slow so we can all say it together. Ready? Here we go. I don't like to forget my dreams. You know how sometimes you wake up and you can remember your whole dream perfectly. But by dinner, the entire thing is gone. I don't like that. Where do these dreams go? Why are dreams so easy to forget? Let's stop right there, guys. There was one word that I noticed that somebody had trouble with. It's right here on the board. And we're going to think about different ways to attack this word. Okay? What are some parts that we know? Purr. Purr, okay. So we can say purr. What's another chunk we know? Effect. You can see, like, if we were drawing that, and what's the last one, Sean? Lee, good. And then we say them all together. Perfectly. Who can find perfectly back in the story? All right. Let's reread that sentence. Let's reread you know how. Ready? You know how? Here we go. You know how sometimes you wake up and you can remember your whole dream perfectly, but by dinner, the entire thing is gone. Perfect, guys. You read that perfectly.
Okay, so what expectations did the teachers set with kids to cue them up for that routine?
You have a cue to like prepare the round before.
Told them they were all gonna be together.
And to point with their finger.
Yeah.
Because you want to hear all their voices.
Exactly, all their voices, so we want to make sure all kids are participating, right? And that's something that you can prompt kids on if you're like, just, oh, I want to hear all voices, right? We're all reading. If you notice a kid is kind of reluctant to chime in. She also, it kind of cut off a little bit, but she cued them around like, remember, we're working on our fluency. That means we're reading accurately and with expression. What did you see her doing during the routine?
Looking around at everybody to make sure they were listening.
What else?
Well, she stopped when there was a word they were having difficulty.
She's paying attention to where the errors are happening, right? She didn't stop them immediately. She let them finish that sentence, and then she brought their attention back to it, right? You want to be careful with, like, you're going to have to fill this out as you work with kids. We want the feedback to be timely so that kids connect the feedback to the error, but we also don't want to be interrupting their reading so much that it breaks down comprehension, right? And we always, if we do pause them when reading, we always want to go back and reread so that they do get that fluid read of the sentence, okay? How did she show them how to attack that word? What strategy have we learned already that relates?
By syllable.
Yeah, she broke it, she had them recognize the syllables. And the thing is, all the kids could read that word, right? It's just kind of like, because they're seeing it in full text, because it's multisyllabic, they probably, graze through it, and she calls their attention to it, has them chunk it, and then they can read it fluently moving forward, okay? So you want to pay attention when the kids are reading, if there's a word you want to bring them back to, if you're noticing like they're not reading a question mark with a proper intonation, that might be something you call out for them, right? But really this is going to come from you noticing what the kids are doing and then having responsive feedback according to what you're seeing. Okay. How do we feel about this routine? Yeah.
I think for this one particularly, but for a lot of these things, like the amount of time allotted is so short that like even how much, I don't know, it just seems daunting to like listen, to call out things that they're struggling with, go through a potential word they're stumbling on, reread it, like 3 minutes would be well past.
This is a guide, right? And like a classroom teacher would get to a place where like their pacing would be fast enough so that they could do all these parts. Our expectation for you is to build up to that, right? It's not a huge deal if you do not get through every single routine, because I built these routines so that kids are getting repeated reads no matter what, okay? But what we don't want to do is choral reading for 10 minutes, because kids will revolt, okay? They're going to get bored. So And like I said, it's also, completion of the passage is not the objective here, okay? So it's okay if you just do a little bit of choral reading, or if you're like, you know what, paragraph 2 has a lot more complicated, is more complicated, so I'm just gonna have them choral read paragraph 2, and then I'm gonna move them to the next routine. These are kind of judgments that you can make, right? As you get into it, you get a sense of like how long it takes you to do these things, okay? So don't like beat yourself up if you spend a little more time on one routine or you don't get to the last part. That's kind of built in as a cushion, because what I didn't want to have happen is for you to have nothing to do with kids, because that's also not a fun place to be in, right? So if you don't get to number 8, I think it is, or 6, sorry, that's not really the purpose of this time. It's kind of like a bonus, right? The real purpose is repeated reading with fluency practice.
Yes, so my understanding is we're scheduled for an hour, and this is a half an hour.
You'll do 2 groups. You're going to see 2 groups in that hour, okay? Yeah.
One of the things I just want to point out to remember is the reason you're sitting in your groups is because you're part of a team, right? And so you're on Monday, you're on Tuesday, there's a Thursday, there's a Friday, and you're communicating about that. So, you know, if one thing takes a little longer, the next person picks it up. And that's the beauty of the, you know, team lead and knowing each other now. Because that's super helpful. Because sometimes there's going to be days, you know, it slows down a little, whatever. It's okay, right? It's not a race. You're really helping them, and you just, right, Jesse and
Yeah, I was itching to say the same thing because it sounds more complex than it is, and it's really easy to communicate with your cohort, with your volunteer cohort. And so if you imagine, say this was our passage, and I happen to only get through the second paragraph. This would probably say leaders copy, volunteers copy, and you just put a note on there. And then what we did in our group last year, was just took a picture and shot it in a group text to everybody. So it's like, oh, if you follow me the next day, then everybody would see it, but you would know, oh, this is exactly where I'm going to start. And there'd be notes in this binder that will say, I got through, I imagine we'll have a copy of this in there, and we'll say, I got down to this in this far in this area, so it'll be really straightforward. And so it definitely sounds like, wow, how's all this gonna come together? But in your bin will be everything you need. And then in a group text will be up-to-date instructions. And so it gets really simple as you get into it, So it's really smooth. And the teachers will be involved to the degree they need to be, so you're not like out by yourself trying to navigate this foreign territory. It's a whole team in your cohort as well as the teacher.
I screwed up and didn't see the Bellhaven 5th grade sign and realized I'm in the 3rd grade. That I'd like to meet my cohorts. Can we get together and exchange
Can we do that at the end?
Yeah, at the end.
Yeah, we're running low on time, and I have several more routines to show you guys.
Yeah.
So, yes.
So in terms of, shooting the text through school is great, but if you need some prep time, it sounds like, before. So that needs to be built in. We can go into the room early, this kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna just, anytime you're teaching, you're gonna feel much more confident if you practice and reviewed ahead of time, right? If you just think you're gonna walk into the classroom, pick up the bin, and like cold read a passage with kids, it's not gonna feel as smooth, you're not gonna feel as confident, right? So it's a little bit of homework, but I would really recommend that you've read this passage ahead of time yourself, you've thought about what words are gonna trip kids up, how might I respond to that, right? Do a little bit of the vocabulary prep, but I think that will help you feel more confident in leading the groups, for sure.
And I'm talking about notes that
Yeah.
seeing those in advance.
Yes.
We count
Oh,
on
yeah,
that.
I think that would be fine. I think you can show up to the classrooms a little early, review the notes, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I just want to clarify, so the whole year there will be no books? So calling them book clubs is a complete misnomer.
They were called Fluency/book clubs, and we've decided for now we're gonna focus on Fluency because that is the bigger need for our kiddos. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, let me address this. So we had a change in leadership, and Shawna's new. So when I was working with Karen Schreiner, who was in the district office last spring, the philosophy was book clubs in the older grades. And Shawna and Kendra looked at the data, and this is what kids really need. So that's why we are not starting out with book clubs. We will evaluate it. I mean, maybe later in the school year, we might transition some groups to book
The
clubs.
hope is to get kids to book clubs,
Yeah.
but right now, the data and like our reading interventionists are asking us to focus on fluency.
Yeah.
A little bit false
I know,
advertising.
sorry about that. Yeah, sometimes there is.
Many of us, well, I'll speak for myself. I
Yeah.
joined because I love books.
Yeah.
Not because I want to read passages 5 times with kids.
But my guess is you learned to love books because you had really solid reading instruction, and you got lots of opportunities to practice reading.
No, I totally
That's
understand. If it's
understandable.
not for you, yeah, come tell me. We can work with that.
So as far as explaining it to the kids, if some of these kids think of it as book club, what do we call it?
They're not gonna
think
know
about
that. That was sort of like an internal
Internal thing, okay.
placeholder name for it. They're just gonna know they're going to their reading group, right?
Got it.
Or their WIN group, or yeah. Okay. One more note about pacing. The thing that gets pacing off the most is adult talk, because adults love to hear ourselves talk, right? And we over-explain things.
Now, we know as good readers, to read fluently, you have to read the words.
And so, like, when you're thinking about pacing and you're thinking about getting through all those routines, that is the place to pay attention to the most. You want to keep your directions short and concise, right? And not long explanations between each routine. And that will really help you with pacing. All right, our next routine is a buddy reading routine. And this is now, so you'll notice the routines, we're going from most teacher directed to least teacher directed, okay? So in this routine, kids are reading to each other and kids are tracking each other's progress, okay? So the teacher is not reading the text with students. The teacher's job is to listen to kids reading and just step in if they really get stuck, right? But we actually want this routine to help kids identify errors themselves and provide each other correction, okay? So in this routine, the kids, I'm picturing likely your group will be sitting around a table, so it makes sense for them to be shoulder to shoulder. Each child should be looking at the text, right? Child A is reading out loud, and child B is following along. And if child A makes a mistake, then they'll say, oops, try again, or sound out that word. Or sometimes they will tell them the word. That's not a big deal. They can tell them the word and the other kid can keep reading, right? Usually you want to keep this routine, give them a minute. So partner A reads for a minute, pause, okay, switch, partner B is going to read, and partner A is going to track, okay? Let's look at this routine. This video is taking place in a whole class setting. You guys will be in small groups. So her directions look a little bit different, and kids are not sitting shoulder to shoulder, they're knee to knee, but otherwise the routine is very similar.
Ready, say, I'm ready. Today we're going to do partner reading with fluency. Now remember, a fluent reader reads the words correctly and also has expression in their voice while they're reading. Okay? So we're going to read passage 2 in our packet today. Person A, raise your hand. Okay, person A, you're going to read your passage first. Person B, raise your hand. Okay, you're going to be providing polite feedback, letting them know how they're doing. All right. When I say the word of the day is going to be shiver. When I say shiver, you're going to turn eye to eye, knee to knee with your partner, and person A will begin. How do you show your partner you're following along? Bailey? Fantastic. Shiver. Justin, I really enjoyed watching you read. I could hear an expression in your voice. And I also saw that you made a mistake with forget and went back and fixed it. Alright. Did you say a good job?
Some people call it Mr. Sticky. I was studying in Indonesia, and they had one of our students Mary already was looking forward to the next year's grade.
have you read that you said beds? And you did notice that? Okay. So this is great, so now we'll both know that it's plastic beads instead of plastic beds. Because plastic beds, no, plastic beads makes much more sense. All right. Well done, guys.
Okay, so what do we notice in this routine?
It's really loud.
Was the whole classroom setting, and also video picks up sound differently. But yeah, kids are gonna have to tune out some ambient noise, but they're pretty used to doing that, honestly. It's gonna be more, I think, overstimulating for the adults than it will be for the kiddos.
But I think the kids seem to really like taking charge and
Yes.
acknowledging their own errors. And I would imagine they really like to politely point out their partner's errors.
They love it.
Yeah. I noticed that she did say, make sure you give polite feedback, but then she modeled it.
Yeah. Yeah, so she did some, yes, please.
I was going to say, last year I did fluency groups in 3rd grade, and, you know, asking the kids to provide feedback to each other, they really didn't know what that meant, so I gave examples, and we talked about, like you have on there, like talked about their pacing, or their intonation, their expression, like their things they know, what am I providing feedback on, not just, oh, you did a good job, right? Because you want it to be more specific, so, but modeling that and just talking about that ahead of time.
Yeah, I think as you get to know your groups, you'll start to get a sense of like where are they getting stuck, what's hard for them, right? And you can have kids focus their feedback on that, right? So today I want you guys to give feedback to your partner on pausing when they see a comma, right? And when we say feedback, it's not so much like at the end of the story, tell your partner how they did. It's more like while they're reading, if they get stuck on a word, you're gonna say, the partner, train the kids to say, sound it out, or try again. That's the kind of feedback we're talking about, right? And really, like, the point of this routine is to help kids start to recognize for themselves when they're making errors, because good readers catch errors when they're reading and they're like, oh, I didn't understand that, I need to go back and reread, right? So we're training kids how to do that level of metacognition about their own reading. All right, any other questions about buddy reading? Yes?
Often if we have 3 kids, it won't be, it'll presumably be 2 students and then a teacher with a
Yeah,
student.
so you could, be thoughtful about which, like, rotating through, so you get another chance to hear kids read. You can give feedback, obviously you don't need to read and have them give you feedback, but it'll give you another chance to hear them read. Okay, so our next routine, I just really like alliteration, so I call this the reading rehearsal. But basically, this is one more read the kids are going to do before they time themselves, okay? And this read is, the students are going to read the text out loud, and the teacher is going to listen carefully and give feedback as needed, okay? So this is now, we've gone from teacher-led, like echoing the teacher, reading all together, reading with a partner, to now we're reading independently on our own. And we're just getting a little bit of feedback from the teacher as needed. Okay? You really only want to have kids try this for about a minute, maybe a minute and 30 seconds. It's the read before they do the timed read. The types of feedback you want to give kids, again, we don't want to give long explanations, just short, tiny prompts, right? Oh, try it again, sound it out. The word is, if they're really stuck, the word is fog. And then have them go back and reread the sentence. And then also you might cue them towards, punctuation. This is a comma. It sounds like a pause, right? You might need to model that. But mostly by the time kids have gotten to this routine, they've read this text multiple times, right? So you're just giving them little tiny bits of feedback to get them to that full automaticity.
So you go one by one?
Oh, sorry, thank you. What you're gonna do, because you don't want kids sitting and doing nothing, right? So you can kind of feel out what works best for you. You could have them answer one of the comprehension questions if you need to. That could also be a whole other thing. Or you can just have them all, what I like to do is I teach my kids like a tap on, tap off situation. So all the kids are reading quietly to themselves. And then when I tap the table in front of me, you're gonna turn your voice up so I can listen to you read. I'm gonna listen to you read a couple of sentences. I'm gonna tap and I'm gonna go to the next kid, turn them up, right? They kind of like it. And they really want your personal attention. So they get really excited about having your attention on their reading. And this is really, you know, the first time they're gonna get that big focus from you on their one-on-one reading. So kind of play with that. What you don't want is you're listening to one kid and the other two kids are bored, start goofing off, have nothing to do. You can have them read it to themselves multiple times too if it takes you. It's never going to hurt a kid to reread the text.
When you say read it to themselves, though, are they reading out loud really quietly?
You still want them reading out loud in a whisper voice. Yep, a whisper voice. But like you want to see their mouth moving, right? So that's kind of what you're going to cue them to do. Okay, here's another video of what this looks like.
His favorite color, his favorite coach was Mr. Costa. Madison wanted to give Mr. Costa a gift, but she didn't have any money. She used a toothpick.
All right, that was well done. So 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65. So that time you got 65 words in a minute. And you did a nice job fixing coach. Here at the end of this word, you said fingers. Check your ending there. What's that word?
Finger.
There you go. Great fixing. And right here, this was a tricky word. So, oh, you fixed it. Because now do you understand she's making something?
Yeah.
Okay. And she's using the salt and the flour.
Okay, so you probably won't be able to give like that level of one-on-one attention, but I wanted you to just kind of see, like this is a little bit of a combination of the reading rehearsal with the graphing, right? Because the adult was counting up the words the kid read. But what kinds of things was she giving her feedback on?
Specific words.
And also just like her effort, right? Like, awesome job, you got 65 words that time, right? Sorry, was there?
Corrections.
Yeah, there's some quick corrections in there. And if you notice the student, when the teacher pointed out the words, the student was able to correct every error herself, right? So we want to give kids the opportunity to do that. Most of the time when we're working with kids at this level, they can read the words. It's just when they get to whole text, that's when things can get harder for them, right? So just calling their attention to it and allowing them to correct it themselves is the most impactful way you can support them.
So is there a priority for giving corrections? Because I don't think you want to overwhelm them with everything. But if they don't get the word right, that might be the top priority or something? I don't know.
Yeah, so I think you want to kind of, and again, you kind of have to get in there and do this with kids to start feeling the difference. But like, sometimes kids make an error because they're just reading quickly and they say the wrong word, right? If you feel confident they know how to pronounce that word, like decode that word, maybe skip over that one. But if it's like they get stuck and they don't know how to decode a word, that's where I would definitely give feedback. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna do one more role play. I'm gonna ask you guys to partner up. We'll do a minute each. Partner A is gonna be the teacher and partner B is gonna be a student who's reading with some errors, so get crazy with that. Maybe not too crazy. And then partner A is gonna practice giving feedback to partner B, okay? All right, go ahead. Sorry that was a short practice, but we're running out of runway, so I want to make sure we get through all the routines. How did it feel to do that routine?
To remember the errors.
like the errors the student was making? Okay.
Some of them are really obvious, you know, like just mispronouncing the word.
Yeah.
Some of the more subtle ones.
Yeah, I would wait more, like you should always have a copy of the text in front of you too, and you can definitely mark it up. I would wait more than like a sentence to correct.
But I thought we were timing it.
No, this is the next, during this one, you're not doing any correction. During this
Okay, but the
routine.
previous one, the one we just said.
Yeah, sorry, that was a little confusing, so like in the reading rehearsal, you are correcting, you're not timing it.
Okay, so we can't stop.
Yes, you should, yeah, that one's not timed, you can stop and give feedback, and, I mean, don't let it go on too long, not to get to the end of the text, but, yeah.
She did different kinds of errors. One was the hesitation one, where she was just hesitating to say a word. Another one was where she was So at some point, we can't be correcting everything. If they hesitate but get it right, we probably
Yeah, yes, if they self-correct, you just let it go, right? Or if they hesitate and then they figure it out and they decode it and that's great, let it go. If you're encountering a situation where you're putting these passages in front of kids and they're struggling with every other word, that is not the right passage for them. I should have said that a long time ago, I'm sorry. Like the point of these passages is that it should be at their kind of instructional level. So it's the level they can read with guidance, okay? They may not be able to read it fully independently, but it should not feel like torture to get through that that passage. And if it does, then you need to have a conversation with like the reading interventionist or the teacher or Angie and Susan to be able to modify the passages you're putting in front of kids. Okay, we do have them leveled for different grade levels, so it's pretty easy to switch into a different passage. Yes?
So is the expectation that you can do this with 3 to 5 children in 3 minutes? Each?
Three.
Three kids.
3 kids is going to be the max.
Okay, so you should have time to do that in 3 minutes.
Roughly a minute per kid.
Okay.
Yeah, because again, you're not going through the whole text, you're just listening to them read a chunk and giving them some feedback.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not the whole thing.
So like the first kid, you might listen to the first paragraph, the second kid, you might listen to, and so on. Yeah.
That's fine. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
I think you said this and I've already forgotten. What are the other kids doing? Are they listening to you or?
No, they're reading independently on their own
Yes.
during that time. Yes. But out loud, yes. Any other questions? Okay. This one. This routine is the one which is sort of like a mini assessment, but it's not, it's not a big deal. So, it's just a way for us to keep track of kids' word per minute, and if over time they're increasing their words per minute, right? Because that's the best measure of their fluency. And it's also the best measure of their ability to comprehend text, is how fluently they're reading. So during this time, you have your small group, you're gonna set a timer for 1 minute. All the kids are reading out loud at a whisper level, the same text, right? So you're gonna have them all read it, and then after the timer goes, you're gonna say stop, put a mark on your paper where you stopped, and then you're gonna count the words. They're gonna count the words, and they are going to, confirm your visual, sorry. They are going to graph them on this page, right? And this is really motivating for kids because you can talk to them about, okay, we're 4th graders. Our grade level goal is to read 146 words per minute by the end of the year, right? So let's see how we're doing on our goal. And like each of these little lines could be the number of times they've read that text. So for each passage, they're gonna read it times, right? So you wanna see like, oh, did you grow from yesterday to today, right? So it's a really motivating thing. It's very visual for kids to see their growth over time. Yeah.
What is the science on them, like, knowing that number or whatever? Because I'm thinking about my 4-year-old, not that she's reading, but she's hyper-competitive. And so her thing will be like, well, I want to keep getting higher and higher, whether or not it's actually sinking in,
Yeah, so honestly, we want to be transparent with kids, and it depends on the age level, right? Like 4 is maybe not the right place to start, but by the time they're in 3rd grade, like we want to be transparent with kids about what the goal is, right? Because we want kids to start learning how to set goals for themselves, and that starts initially with adults being like, here's a goal we're going to work on, and then slowly releasing it to kids. So you want kids to know what they're aiming for. I have found in my experience, like, at the school that I used to lead, we did a whole thing where we like conferenced with every kid, told them where they were, what their goal was, dramatically improved their reading scores.
Really?
Because they suddenly knew, oh, 150 words per minute, if I just like read a little bit faster, I'm gonna get that, right? Like it was a whole different motivation for them, and they were so excited to see their progress.
Does it set up a competitiveness between the kids in the group?
You definitely don't want to do that, right? And remember,
No, I don't want to do that.
Yes. So you got to think of some like back pocket phrases you're going to use. Like we're all learning to read. We're all going to read at different paces. The goal is not to read the fastest. The goal is to read the smoothest, right? With the fewest errors. So that is something that you'll have to message. Pay attention if it's starting to feel really competitive, like check in with someone, we can strategize around how to like bring that down a little bit. But I think really you want to celebrate everyone's growth, right? So it could be like, oh wow, everyone grew more words than they read yesterday. Something like that will help make it so that everyone's feeling the progress. Yes? Either one of you. Just
Sorry if
popcorn
I'm
about
making you repeat yourself, but are they supposed to read together for the 1 minute and then count their own progress?
So they're each reading independently, but they're reading the same text.
Independently whisper voice?
Yeah.
Okay, and
At
then
the
they're
same
supposed to
time.
count their own
At the
progress.
same time,
Okay,
yeah.
got it,
So
thanks.
it is a little bit of an honor system here, right? But this is not high stakes testing, you guys. Like this is for them to practice this, right? So they're gonna calculate, and it gives them an ownership over their own reading, right? Yeah.
I noticed here it says correct words per minute. So are we going to make a mental note that, oh, okay, I heard them make errors on X number of words, or?
Because we're doing, sorry, did I put that on there? Correct word, count the number of words they've read. Oh, this on the graph, sorry. Yes. We're doing this as more of the way we assess this is teachers like actually pay attention to every single word and then they calculate words per minute. Because this is more of a student-driven routine, we're not gonna worry about whether they made a mistake, right? Right now, we're just getting them in the habit of paying attention to their own reading.
So should we put that in our text to each other? You know, Sally read, 145 words a minute, but she made errors on X number of words, or?
We're not gonna be able to determine.
If you are that detailed, you certainly can. It's not, but also, it's okay if you're not.
Okay.
Okay, because it's really just about getting kids to reread and practice their reading.
With
Yes.
3 people reading simultaneously, we're not gonna be able to figure it out.
It would be pretty hard for you to hear every kid make a mistake
So,
with their reading
so 2
simultaneously.
questions. One, will we have on the passages, will they have numbers on the side of words?
They're just gonna have the total at the end of each paragraph, right? And so you can count backwards, count on.
Got it, okay.
If somebody has the time and meticulousness, you could add the words per minute to the columns.
What,
Yeah.
and, oh, what words would you use to encourage the students on how to do this? It's not like fast. It's, do you want to read, and I don't know if they'll understand, you want to read with fluency. So what words would you use to kind of get them to do it at the right level you want them to do it at?
So I would say something like, okay guys, we've been working on this for the last 2 days. Now you're gonna read and time yourself. Remember, you wanna practice reading with the right speed and the right expression. The goal is not to be the fastest, the goal is to read the most words correctly that you can in 1 minute.
Okay, and then you said after 2 days. So are we doing this after every day or after every passage is complete on the second day?
So they do it on both day 1 and day 2. Like if you look at this handout, sorry, I forgot. If you look at this handout, it's like, it's step 5 on day 1, and step 4 on day 2. So they're gonna get to do 2 timed reads, because we want them to see their progress over the 2 days. Yes?
And we're keeping these are in a file.
Yes. Yep, you wanna keep them so kids can keep adding to them and refer back to them, okay?
How do we know their goal? Their goal?
It's in the beginning of the slide deck.
Oh, it's
Maybe-
the chart?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so it's like the average.
But you might also want to bring that, you know, it depends on where the kids are. You can ask their teachers what their words per minute is, and like, maybe initially the goal is to just increase it by 20. For the first month, we're gonna try to, you know, or 2 months, we're gonna try to increase our words per minute by 20 words. Then we're gonna add on another 20, you know? So you can chunk the goal, or you can say, by the end of this grade, we wanna read this many words per minute.
And is it the average level on that chart, or? what
The way
numbers
you
should
want to
we
look
go
at the
for?
chart is, sorry.
Or should we ask the teacher if they have a goal?
You can also ask the teacher might have already set a goal with them. When you look at this chart, you want to, we want them in the green, right? So like if they're at the bottom, if they're like at the bottom of the yellow, then maybe like the bottom of the green is the goal. If they're up here, then we want to kind of get them in between 94 and 127, right?
Thank you.
Okay. One more thing to go over. We're out of time. Okay. All right, so the last thing, if you have time, and I expect that probably it will take you a couple of weeks to get your routines tight enough to get to this part, so it's not a big deal if you don't get to this part. It's here for you so you don't have nothing to do. Sorry, that's double negative. But I don't want you to have like time with kids and nothing to fill it with, right? So if you have time, at the end of your repeated readings for the day, there are comprehension questions there for you to discuss with kids. Those questions vary in complexity from literal, it's like right in the text, to inferential, to evaluative, getting them to do some higher order thinking. The one piece we want to emphasize here is this is an opportunity for students to work on their oral language. And so we want to emphasize kids responding in complete sentences, right? And expanding their language production when they're responding, right? So that piece is just like, it just looks like a little small group discussion. For instance, all right guys, let's talk about what happened in this text. What happened first, in the middle, and then at the end, right? We have the kids, and then you're just gonna kind of prompt them to be like, you know, whatever. One kid maybe says, Daniel found the treasure. Then you're just gonna kind of lead a discussion. Well, where did he find the treasure? Can you put that in a complete sentence? Kind of like pulling the language out of them and getting them into the habit of speaking in complete sentences.
So are they writing?
Initially, I was like, we're gonna write too, but we don't have time for that.
Okay.
If by some miracle you get through all of these routines and there's still time left over, or you need to keep one kid busy while you're working intensely with another, then you can work on the writing, okay? But right now, the focus is just orally answering the questions. Yeah. And that really, again, is not the intention of this time. It's just a little extra dip for kids to make the connection between when I read, it has meaning, right? I'm reading to comprehend.
What
Yeah.
grade level is this passage?
That's a 4th grade passage. Okay. So we're gonna skip this practice, but I encourage you guys to practice, find a victim in your personal lives that you can practice all these routines on. In terms of materials, this deck will be shared with you. We're also going to do more collaboration around making sure all the materials are ready for you. But every day you're going to need your printed fluency passages. That's a link if you want to sneak peek at all those passages. You're going to need your vocab, either like a slide or like a printout with the word and the structure, sort of how I modeled earlier. You might want to have that fluency checklist for students. That was the one at the beginning. Do you guys remember that? Probably not, because I've thrown so much information at you. It was this one. You might want to have a printout of this, because this is a really good thing to refer kids back to and to have them self-check, right? So you can even ask, okay, how do we do with our accuracy today? How do we do with our rate? You want kids to kind of internalize, like, this is what fluency means. And you probably want to have some kind of timer. Kids are going to need their graphs and then some way to organize that, right? So folders, any of that. And then something to color the graph in with a pencil or marker. Pretty low materials, which is nice compared to SIBS, which is a ton of materials. Okay. Any questions for me, having run through all of those routines?
On the last page, where it says vocabulary quiz, is that an actual quiz?
Thank you. Let's look at our passage, the 4th grade passage. On the very bottom, there's a quick little vocabulary quiz for kiddos.
Oh, wow.
On the back and on the bottom. Okay? So at the end of day 2, it's just a quick check. It's great for you as a teacher to know, are kids actually learning what I'm teaching? How are we doing on vocabulary? Okay?
Oh, I understand that.
And that'll just be like a quick little fill in the blank. And we want kids to read those sentences independently, right? You're not reading it to them, and then choose the correct word.
This is after comprehension?
Yeah, that's at the end. And if I had to make a choice between the comprehension questions or the vocabulary quiz, I'd probably go with the vocabulary quiz, because I want to see if that's sticking. Yeah.
I assume that sometimes we're going to have some kids that miss day 1 if they're in day 2. How do you handle that?
It's no big deal, because these routines are built to repeat and repeat, right? So if they miss all of day 1, they're going to repeatedly read the passage on day 2. They won't get quite as many.
So if I'm the day 2 person, regardless of whether they miss day 1 or not, I still do day 2 for
Yep,
everyone.
you're just going to go through the day 2 routines with all the kids. Yeah. There's going to be, throughout the course of, think about this over the course of the year, they're going to get so many opportunities to repeatedly read, right? The goal of this is not, can they tell you about this story, right? Like the story is, it's a little bit of a canned reading, because it's controlled for words that they should be able to decode, right? The goal of this time is to give them opportunities to build their accuracy and their rate.
So how long do we have the same group of kids?
Probably likely for the whole school year. Sometimes kids will move depending on if like their assessments, they show like a big
But
growth,
typically-
yeah, but usually you'll work with the same kids throughout the year.
Yeah. So just want to make sure that I understand. So there's the 2 passages, like in a week, every 4 days.
Yep.
But then we were saying earlier, like if you don't finish it all, then you might not move on to the next passage.
I would just,
or should we
I would
stick
really,
with the
I
daily?
would just move on to the next day. Like do day 1 routine on Mondays and Thursdays, and do day 2 routine on Tuesdays and Fridays. Keep it simple for yourselves. Because it's built to repeat, it's not a big deal if they didn't finish the passage on the echo reading on day 1. Just go into choral reading on day 2. It's
Okay.
just another at-bat for them.
Okay, so maybe just give your group feedback of where you were, just so that you kind of know.
Yeah.
Just move on to the next day.
Right. And these passages, I intentionally designed them to be longer than even like the grade level goal for words per minute, right? So they're a little bit longer than like what a 4th grader needs to read at grade level.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. I guess one more question, yeah.
So has this focused on one text for a week you tried before?
2 days.
2 days.
We're doing one, yeah. So all of the research around is very clear that repeated reading is the thing, right? Some kids are doing repeated reading with the same text. Like all of these routines, like every day. So they'll read the same text for 5 days. I heard there was feedback from volunteers last year that kids were like, not again. Right. So that's why I shortened it to just 2 days. So they're only gonna see the same text for 2 days, right? And that will give them a little bit more variety, but also the repeated reading they need. And you'll see after 2 days, I think they will have read the text a total of like 6 times. Their ability to read it is going to grow tremendously over those 6 reads, right? And that's what we want them to see.
So it has been tried before, and kids were really fed up with it.
I think it depends on the kids, but I also think like what we don't want to do is just give the kid a passage and be like, read this again, read this again, read this again. I tried to build a routine so that there are lots of different entry points for engagement, right? Like the echo reading, that's fun. The choral reading is fun. The buddy reading, so there are different ways for them to engage in the reading, and that keeps it moving and keeps it novel. But also creates a routine of predictability that is important for kids.
The reason I'm asking so one of the things that surprised me the most, I did this work before in the first grades yesterday. One of the things that surprised me the most is really sort of discipline and keeping kids focused. And I guess I was expecting for book more so. And that aside, I can see this being a challenge, keeping kids focused.
Yes.
Just completely disengaged and we do nothing for one day.
Yes.
So anyway.
Yeah, if you're noticing disengagement or you're struggling with behavior, one, I just want to emphasize this because I think as educators, like we all are doing this work because we love kids and we want kids to succeed, right? And sometimes that means we come in very soft and our kids actually really crave firmness. That does not mean you're being mean to kids. It does not mean you're being sarcastic with them or raising your voice. It just means that you're very firm. Our kids feel safe when they know that you, the adult, are going to hold the space. And so having kind of like a no-nonsense approach and correcting behavior the minute it happens is going to be really important to setting the tone for your group. If you're having persistent issues with an individual student, definitely reach out for support. But also like hold a high expectation. Your kids, all of your kids know how to behave. They might try to work you a little bit and they might think that you don't know what they're supposed to do. So make it really clear to them right off the bat that you have high expectations, right? So like if you're doing the choral reading and one kid's not reading, it's everyone's voice, let's go. So you're making the eye contact, you're being firm, and you're insisting that everyone participate.
If I could just add one little thing to the kids, what I have found is they respond well to little analogies too. And so I always framed it in my reading groups or my intervention classes as we're a team, or so that's your little team, and you're all supporting each other. I always use soccer as an example because I am not great at soccer. Many of our students are. So I talk to them about like if I had to take a test for soccer or score goal or something, I would need additional practice, right? And they would be the expert, and they can teach me. And so this time during that win time or UT2T, like that's the practice piece, right? That's like when you go to soccer practice and you have to, practice dribbling the ball through the cones a million times. It's to get ready for game time, right? So like keeping that in mind too, that end goal, that like this is our practice, and sometimes it's hard, and that can kind of they respond to, they understand that analogy a little bit. So it doesn't work all the time, but it just kind of frames it for them a little bit that this is the heart, this is the practice. We're gonna help each other, we're a team,
and I should say to never underestimate, I kind of emphasize like the corrective stuff, but never underestimate the power of positivity. Like our kids want positive attention from us. They're craving it, they feed on it, right? So the more opportunities you can find to praise a student for doing the right thing. Now don't just give out free praise, right? Like this is, wow, everyone was reading reading Coralie. I heard everyone's voice that time. My school, we did this little trick where the teacher would literally just draw a star on the student's table. They loved it. Like, the stars meant nothing other than they were recognized, but it was so motivating for the kids, right? So think of little ways, like maybe a little point system for your group that you're using to recognize them. Oh, if we get 10 points today for all working hard, we're each gonna get a panther paw, right? Or, you know, and you can make it, that's another way to bring down the competitiveness, so it's not like we're working together on this goal. If we all work hard, then we get this thing, right? But also just the verbal praise, it doesn't even have to be a thing. The verbal praise, the recognition is super motivating for kids, right? And we always want to emphasize effort, right, over intelligence, because we don't want our kids thinking like, oh, I know I'm a good reader, like I don't need to try anymore, right? It's like, no, we're all working hard. And if you can be specific too. So I noticed you went back and corrected that mistake. Way to go. I saw you sounding out the word there when you got stuck. Way to go. So you're emphasizing the skills you want them to be working on in their self-correction too.
And don't be afraid to model a mistake. They love when you make a mistake, and they love to be able to do some correction. So model some of that too.
Yeah. Just a bigger question that maybe you can't answer, but given what's going on in the country, are the kids particularly stressed out this year? Are they scared because of the communities they live in and the things that we all know are happening?
I think it depends on the kid, and it depends on
Notice anything out of the ordinary?
I'm a little bit newer to the Ravenswood community. I will definitely, like, kids in general, I think kids of color, kids who are coming from Latinx backgrounds in particular, there is definitely a heightened level of stress and insecurity that I've seen with kids. And I think families are in various places of like figuring out how to protect their kids or not from that knowledge, right? So I've also experienced kids who like really don't know what's going on because their families made a very intentional effort not to expose them to that, and then other kids that are talking about it all the time. So it might come up, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Are they skipping class and, you know?
their attendance is actually getting better in the district, which is amazing. I mean, they're at the highest attendance levels they've been post-COVID. So that is really great news. But having said that, I worked with 6 fifth graders last year. All 6 of them, it came up in our sessions, all 6 of them knew about ICE raids. They knew what was happening in the country. They were worried for their families. So the older kids are pretty in tune with what's going on because they're talking about it at home. So yeah, it may very well come up, but just reassuring them, you know, there's safe adults at school that are going to try to keep them safe. I mean, that's the best you can do. You can't make any promises, obviously.
So are they safe at school?
Well, we hope so.
But what about ICE raids?
That is a complicated question.
There are, I mean,
we have protocols
there are
in
protocols
place,
in place.
and we're committed to doing everything we possibly can. And we also know that ICE is no longer playing by the rules, right, in any way, shape, or form, or even the law in many instances. So, you know, we are going to do the absolute best we can to prevent that from happening on any of our campuses.
And are you going to tell us how we should respond if there were an ICE raid?
Yeah, the teachers will guide you in the event that there's a, you know, any kind of emergency, and we would consider that an emergency. It's probably a good note. I don't know what that would look like in the class to share like emergency protocols, so you have access to those and know what to do too.
And I would say, you know, emphasizing follow the lead of the classroom teacher because there are protocols in place and communication procedures, going directly to site leaders and then to district leaders as well. And emphasizing that to the kids too, right? Like, you know, we're gonna follow our teacher's lead,
I will say something that like everyone can do just to keep our campuses more safe is be really thoughtful about like opening doors for folks or leaving them open. You know, we want to be polite, so when we see someone walking up, we might assume it's a parent and like we keep the door open, but really there should be a process with the parents going through the office, right? Or anyone who needs to see come onto the campus should be going through the office. So just be mindful about like closing doors behind you, not letting folks in, and just, you know, if someone asks you, you can just be like, oh, please go to the office and check in there.
I brought this up in email, but just to let the staff know, I'm a certified pet therapy team with insurance. So if there is an opportunity for wellness, mental health, even, you know, with staff and kids here, we do that at some of the local schools already.
Awesome.
So it might be an opportunity for the Ravenswood schools.
Yeah, great resource. We'll definitely plug that.
Pet therapy.
Also bringing kids to the dog.
Okay, I know we're well over time.
Yes, thank
I'm
you all for
sorry.
coming, I really appreciate it.